Now, from Wish TV, your local news source, this is All Indiana Politics.
Good Sunday morning. Welcome to another edition of All Indiana Politics. I'm Phil Sanchez. Indiana's Secretary of State race remains a hot topic in the final weeks of the election. We've already heard from both the Libertarian and Republican candidates for the job. Now we turn to the Democratic candidate, Destiny Wells. My colleague Garrett Berquist sat down with her recently.
Destiny Wells, thank you for joining us today. Why are you running for Secretary of State?
I believe that this race this year, specifically this moment in time, is the touch point of the future of our democracy. Secretary of State races all around the country are being contested in part by election deniers. There are a handful of states with election denier candidates, to include Indiana and our opponent, Diego Morales. And so it takes a professional to stand up and run as a Democrat who can reach across the aisle to that moderate voter and say, hey, I want to run this office professionally. Partisanship second. And that is what we're doing. And I think my record really fits this race with my military background and my attorney background.
There are 3 candidates with names on the ballot, counting yourself, plus 2 write-in candidates. What sets you apart from the rest of the field? I
have been serving in government since I was 19. So I have almost 20 years of military service. I've served abroad, sacrificed time with family to make sure we uphold democracy. I also am the only one that has legal experience, that knows the ins and outs of what we have seen developed throughout the last 2 years in election litigation. A lot of these battles are fought in court, and I have 2 hats right there. I have the service hat and also the election law expertise.
Should Indiana go to hand-marked paper ballots in all counties?
Hand-marked paper ballots are, by the federal government, one of the best practices. However, to put in paper ballots across all 92 counties is not pragmatic at this time. There are budgetary, constraints that we must always be paying attention to. So you want to streamline our processes, right? We have different processes throughout the state. It makes it very confusing. But paper marked ballots should be something on the horizon that we're always shooting for.
You've been making a play for Republican voters who are unhappy with Diego Morales. What do you say to people who say, I like you, but I can't stomach somebody who might be in lockstep with the state or national Democratic Party?
Well, I would say look to me as an individual, right? Look to my service. And saying that I am country first, always country first, and that this office is different from other offices, like legislative offices, where we see a lot of social policies being put forward. This is a very technocratic administrative office where we need to be looking to the candidate who is pro-democracy. This is a time like no other where we see democratic norms being challenged. And I would challenge people in return to vote for the candidate that they think best upholds our democratic future.
I want to stay on that topic for a minute. You called this a technocratic and administrative office. Now, you have taken public stances on a number of social issues throughout the campaign. You've also been a vocal critic of partisan gerrymandering. Is it right to take partisan stances if you're running for a technocratic and administrative office? Might some of those stances undermine your effort to reach out to those disaffected Republicans?
Well, this year during the special session, we did see abortion come up. And what I have been telling people is look to bills like the anti-abortion bill, look to permitless carry, and see where actually the public was at large on those issues. And the majority of the public did not support them. And so from the Secretary of State standpoint, I'm highlighting those issues because they are symptoms of decades of partisan gerrymandering. And as the chief election officer, you should always be informing the public as to why their government is not truly being a representative democracy. And those issues are just too low-hanging fruit to avoid.
You've made increasing voter turnout a central issue in your campaign. How specifically would you go about doing that if elected?
The Secretary of State's office is a great opportunity to engage with the public, to be an office of customer service, but also an office of civic engagement and education. Indiana is one of the last states in the country for voter turnout. That's why we've been running on that Indiana isn't a red state. It's a purple state with a registered voter turnout problem. And being able to reach out to the public, inform them how safe and secure elections are so that they feel more confident in participating in the process. office. We should be, like I said, an office of education, but also an office of anti-misinformation and disinformation. That is our moral obligation in running this office.
So essentially you see this as taking a little bit more of an active role than past secretaries of state might have done.
We have to look at the times, and the times after 2020 is that the public is being told that elections are not safe and they're not secure. We have candidates on the ballot who are running on conspiracy theories, saying that the election is a scam. So we have to take this position and make sure that we safeguard our democracy. I see this office, with especially 20 years of military experience, as a matter of national security, and that's how I would approach it, with the utmost responsibility and care.
Morales told us that he believes President Joe Biden is the legitimately elected president of the United States. Do you buy that, or do you still consider him to be a 2020 election denier?
He is a 2020 election denier for as long as he is a member of the PAC that is called the Secretary of State's, or excuse me, the America First Secretary of State's Coalition. I have asked him to leave that PAC. Just recently, 2 days ago, at a Trump rally, Diego was named by name as being a member of that PAC and progressing their agenda of subverting American democracy through elections. So while Diego may be saying that now because he knows that he needs the moderate vote to win, and I may mention that a recent poll showed that 25% of moderate voters are undecided, they are very soft on Diego, is that he is going to say whatever he needs to say to get elected, but look to his words in writing where he called the election a scam.
All right, coming up, more candidates for chief election officer, this time in Indiana's most populous county. Welcome back. Marion County voters will pick a new election officer next month. Incumbent Democrat Mila Eldridge is leaving the job. News 8's government reporter Garrett Berquist talked to Republican Andrew Harrison and Democrat Kate Sweeney Bell. They're the only two candidates in the race.
I'm running for Marion County Clerk because I care deeply about this city. I've lived here about 25 years. I love the city very much, and I believe that the skill sets that I have from the Fortune 100 environment make me uniquely suited for this office.
What in your background makes you the best fit for this job?
Yeah, so I do Fortune 100 global security for a living. So I focus on physical security, travel security, crisis management, everything from standards, people, process, and technology. So election security is really struck a chord with me the most. I'm very, very focused on that. I want to find and identify vulnerabilities, and I want to shore them up.
Which leads me into my next question. How do we connect with voters who do not trust the system, either due to the election 2020 rhetoric or due to past efforts to disenfranchise them historically?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I think there should be a public awareness campaign. I think that's one thing that's lacking. There is a general mistrust. It is what I'm finding out in the townships. I do think that there's some optics right now that could be changed. Right now you have the current clerk who is the chief election officer for the county. Not a good optical look. That kind of opens up the door for criticism and scrutiny. So I think and touching on your other point, the 2020 elections, these are political or operative type talking points. I don't think the election was stolen or anything like that. I just think there's got to be a better public awareness campaign in terms of what's being done to shore up those vulnerabilities.
In a similar vein, how do we encourage young people to vote, or to encourage people who vote only in presidential elections to get out and vote in off years and midterms?
I don't think you're going to have a problem this year. I think people are eager for change, especially younger people, and I think they're certainly paying attention more so than ever to some of the hot topics that are on the ticket and on the ballots this year. So again, I think there's got to be a better public awareness campaign, better messaging on both sides, and I think that would help drive more voter turnout.
You keep coming back to better messaging surrounding elections. Can you give me some examples of what you'd like to do? Yeah,
so for example, I attended a seminar here last week called Voter 101, or Voting 101. And this Voting 101 touched on everything you need to know about elections. And it was interesting. I kind of sat in the background, just wanted to listen in, just kind of hear about the things that were being discussed. So I think it's things like that, more awareness campaigns that would really help educate voters on, how to vote, where to vote, who's on the ballot, where to find information, where to find those resources, all those sorts of things.
Should Marion County switch to hand-marked paper ballots?
No.
Why not?
I think that would be another security vulnerability. I think you should have some paper backup, but I think those tabulators that are not connected to the internet, I think are the way to go.
Well, I think that it's very important to increase voter access, and that's one of the things that I want to work on if elected as our next Marion County clerk.
What in your background makes you the best fit for the job?
Well, I have 8 years as a current countywide office holder. This is my 8th year as Marion County recorder, and it's an honor to be able to participate in a system where people get to choose who represents them. And I think that my background, when I was a little kid, my grandfather would take me door to door with him. He was very active in politics, and it stuck with me. And that is what I have built my career on.
How do we connect with voters who don't trust the system either because of misinformation surrounding the 2020 election or due to past efforts to disenfranchise them?
That's an excellent question, and something else we need to work on. The hype about voter fraud is just not true. There are isolated incidents, but a concerted effort to perpetrate voter fraud just does not happen here. And right now, there are systems in place to keep that from happening.
In a similar vein, how do we encourage young people or encourage voters who don't really participate in off years to come out and vote?
Well, that question has special meaning to me because I have a daughter who is a first-time voter. And she, of course, has grown up with it. So she was excited to register to vote and to be able to vote for the first time. She just voted absentee because she's away at college. It is talking to students and going to where they are and engaging them. And if elected, that's what I plan to do. But not only teenagers, but also anyone who will have me. Be it senior citizen centers or community events, to make sure that people know that our elections here in Marion County are safe, secure, fair, and all votes will count.
Should Marion County switch to hand-marked paper ballots?
Marion County, right now, a lot of people don't know this. Voting is not scary. Voting is, well, to me, it's exciting and fun. Some people only see it as a public duty. But where a voter might mark a computer screen, they then get a readout of all of the races in which they voted and for whom they voted. We have paper in Marion County, and if elected, I will not change that. We will always have, a voter should be able to get that piece of paper to make sure that they have the confidence that the choices that they made are reflected in the ballot box.
All right, coming up, we break down the week's headlines with Indiana's best political team. All right, welcome back to All Indiana Politics as we welcome back two members of Indiana's best political team, Republican Allie Bartlett and Democrat Drew Anderson. Good to see you both. As you very well know, the big news that came out on Friday, the January 6th committee issued a subpoena to former President Donald Trump. The committee demanding testimony and documents by November 14th. Drew, we'll start with you this week. How do you see this playing out?
Well, first off, it's about dang time. Accountability needs to happen in all forms of government, including for folks that incited what honestly is insurrection against our country. And I think how this is going to play out is that this is a reminder to voters just a couple weeks before these crucial midterms that not only does accountability matter, but we need to elect candidates, whether they're Democrat or Republican, who's going to respect the Constitution and will respect the fact and admit when they lose. And we have a former president that didn't respect our values as Americans and incited this insurrection. And now look where we are as a country. Accountability matters, and it needs to start from the top, and I'm happy it happened on Friday.
Allie, your thoughts on the subpoena?
Yeah, so I don't necessarily disagree with what Drew said related to, our values as Americans and keeping all those things front and center. What I do think is that this is just going to keep putting Trump's name in the headlines. Like I say, every time when we talk about this, you know, people have decided already where they fall on this issue. People have decided already where they fall on the Donald Trump loving or hating spectrum. This is not going to change anyone's minds going into the midterms. This is not going to cause some ruckus and we're going to overturn a bunch of Republican votes because we keep talking about Donald Trump and he's being subpoenaed by the January 6th Commission, which a lot of Republicans think is a waste of time anyway. So just to be honest, I think this does not move the needle at all.
Maybe not come election day, but still, it's still a process that we need to go through, right? So will he comply, do you think, Allie, with the subpoena?
Sorry, I missed the last question.
Will he
there.
comply with it?
Will he comply with it?
Yeah.
You know, I think that he will likely comply with a subpoena, whether or not that is in, you know, a various different types of legal responses. You know, it doesn't necessarily mean it, you know, you can comply with a subpoena in various different ways. So whether or not he's actually going to show up and talk in front of the committee, I don't know. That remains to be seen. He has a legal team that is all over this right now. And so, you know, whether or not they try to protest this or respond in some other way, I have no idea.
Yeah, Drew, I saw you shaking your head. You don't think so, huh?
No. Everyone who's followed the former president knows that he's always the victim. He'll never comply. He'll never actually want to, follow law or follow orders. He likes to do it his own way. And honestly, at the end of the day, I do agree to what Allie said in some degree when it comes to this commission or this joint committee, because at the end of the day, what we wanted to do from Democrats was establish a bipartisan committee in Congress, but because Republicans played their partisan games, we had to do it a different way. And thank God for Liz Cheney, thank God for Adam Kinzinger, because it is still bipartisan, but Republicans are going to do their own little, partisan gamesmanship, and I just hope that Americans still pay attention.
All right, well, we'll see what happens on that front. Another story that made news this week was, as you very well know, President Biden announcing he's releasing 15 million barrels of oil from the strategic reserve in the hopes of lowering energy prices. Allie, we'll come to you on this. You think this is going to make a difference?
I think it's going to make a difference in the absolute worst possible way. Strategic oil reserves are meant for a crisis like Hurricane Katrina, when President Bush was releasing strategic oil reserves. This is not a bailout for a failed political agenda on Joe Biden's part, and our reserves are now at the lowest they've been in 40 years. The solution to lowering our gas tax and actually to better foreign policy from the Biden administration would be to unleash American energy production. We all know he won't do that because he's done everything he can to prohibit that. This is a complete disaster, and this is bad for America in so many ways. It's actually really scary.
Your thoughts, Drew?
It was smart on the president to get ahead of it, but I want to remind viewers that the reason why Indiana's gas taxes are so high is because of Governor Holcomb and the Republican supermajority.
This isn't about gas taxes.
Can I finish, please? Can I finish? Please? Because at the end of the day, Hoosiers could drive across the Ohio River and get gas that's $1 cheaper in Kentucky. They could go to Ohio and get gas that's $1 cheaper in Ohio. In Indiana, what could have been, we could have a little bit relief in Indiana had the Republicans not put their high taxes on Hoosiers. And so it's a double-edged sword. No, everyone's at fault. It's not one person's fault. And I wish the Republicans could actually come to the table and actually try to address this. But until then, President Biden and Democrats, we're going to do what we can.
Are you worried? I have 45 seconds left, Drew. Are you worried this is going to impact the elections, gas prices?
I think at the end of the day, the election is going to be about the economy and the right to choose, and Democrats are leading the charge on that right now across the state.
Okay. Allie, close us out. Okay. Well, I think we lost Allie, so we'll close it out. Drew, always good to see you, sir. Allie, good to see you as well. Sir. I know you can't hear us. We'll talk again next week, and of course, we got a lot to get to. We'll see what happens this week. We'll be right back.
Take All Indiana Politics on the go with you. Download our podcast now. Part of the All Indiana Podcast Network and allindianapodcastnetwork.com.
And thank you for joining us for All Indiana Politics this week. We'll be back here next Sunday morning at 9:30. You can also find our brand new All Indiana Politics podcast It's part of the All Indiana Podcast Network over at wishtv.com. A big week in politics ahead. We'll wait for reaction from President Trump's team in regards to that subpoena. All of that right here on Wish TV and wishtv.com. Have a great rest of your weekend.